From the boats of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles on the land as on the sea. First to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marine.
Most collectors have at least one artifact sitting on a shelf that doesn't seem particularly special. Maybe it's worn, or maybe it's incomplete, or maybe it's something you just bought to fill a gap in your collection. I know I have certainly done that. For years, this old Marine Corps canteen sat quietly among dozens of other World War II artifacts in my collection. In fact, I almost sold it at one point, but what I eventually discovered transformed this weathered canteen into one of the most meaningful pieces in my entire collection. Today, I'm going to introduce you to Marine Raider Private Andrew Joseph Radich and explain why this simple canteen will never leave my collection. P.S. Never leave my collection. Sorry, guys. Welcome back to Gung Ho Military. If you enjoy military history, original artifacts, and incredible stories behind them, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and join our growing community. Every artifact has a story. Sometimes it simply takes years before that story finally reveals itself. Andrew Joseph Radich was born on November 23, 1919 in Bound Brook, New Jersey. Like many young Americans of his generation, he answered the call to serve before the United States officially entered World War II. On August the 5th, 1940, Radich enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. After completing recruit training at Parris Island, South Carolina, he began his Marine career serving in places such as Guantánamo Bay, Cuba, and Quantico, Virginia. These early assignments prepared him for something far greater that was just over the horizon. December 7th, 1941, the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor forever changed the course of history. Like thousands of Marines, Private Radich wanted to take the fight directly to the enemy. He volunteered for one of the most elite units in the Marine Corps, the legendary 1st Marine Raider Battalion. Assigned to Company E, Radich endured some of the toughest training the Marine Corps had ever developed. The Raiders were expected to operate deep behind enemy lines, living off the land, conducting amphibious assaults, and fighting against overwhelming odds. It wasn't easy, but Radich excelled. After completing Raider training, Private Radich boarded a transport headed for the South Pacific. His destination, Tulagi, and then Guadalcanal. These islands would become some of the bloodiest battlefields of the Pacific War. By September 1942, roughly 840 Marine Raiders occupied a narrow ridgeline about 1,700 yards south of Henderson Field. American intelligence anticipated an attack, but no one fully appreciated what was coming. Advancing toward them were more than 5,000 veteran Japanese soldiers from General Kayatake Kawaguchi's brigade. Marine Raider Commander Colonel Merritt Red Mike Edson, he recognized the terrain's importance and carefully positioned his men along the ridge. For 3 terrifying nights, September 12th, 13th, and 14th, the Marines fought desperately to stop repeated Japanese assaults. The battle would forever become known as Edson's Ridge. It proved to be one of the pivotal battles of the Guadalcanal Campaign. Had Henderson Field fallen, the entire campaign and perhaps the course of the Pacific War might have unfolded very differently. On the final day of the battle, which was September the 14th, 1942, Private Joseph Radich was severely wounded in action. His war was effectively over. He would spend the next year undergoing surgeries and medical treatment before receiving a discharge from the United States Marine Corps on September the 9th, 1943. While many histories remember famous commanders, men like Andrew Radich remind us that victory was earned by thousands of individual Marines whose names are rarely heard today. Now let's talk about the artifact itself. At first glance, this appears to be an ordinary Marine Corps canteen. It's actually an early pattern 1912 canteen cover paired with an earlier model 1910 aluminum canteen and aluminum cup. The cover is worn, faded, and heavily used. Exactly what you'd expect from equipment carried by a Marine during the early years of World War II. When I purchased this canteen years ago, I bought it for one simple reason. I didn't have an example of a pattern 1912 Marine canteen cover. That was it. There wasn't any incredible story, or so I thought. Years later, after finding another canteen cover in much better condition, I considered selling this one. Before listing it, I decided I should research the name that had been written in black ink on the bottom. There, in unmistakable Marine Corps lettering, was the name A.J. Radich. Near the wire attachment hook, the initials A.R. What happened next completely changed how I viewed this artifact. Research revealed that this wasn't just another Marine. It belonged to Private Andrew Joseph Radich, a Marine Raider, a veteran of Guadalcanal, a survivor of Edson's Ridge, a Marine who had paid a terrible price in service to his country. Needless to say, the canteen was never sold. Obviously. People often ask why military collectors become so passionate about seemingly ordinary objects. The answer is simple. It isn't about, in this case, the canteen. It isn't about the cover. It isn't even about the rarity. It's about the human being who carried it. Without research, this is simply an old canteen. With research, it becomes the tangible connection to a young Marine who volunteered to fight among one of the most elite units in the Marine Corps during one of the most critical campaigns of World War II. That's what makes artifacts come alive. That's why preserving their stories matter. Today, this canteen occupies a permanent place in my collection. Not because it's the finest example and not because it's the rarest, but because every time I look at it, I'm reminded of Private Andrew Joseph Radich, his courage, his sacrifice, and the thousands of other Marines who fought beside him on Guadalcanal. History isn't always preserved in museums. Sometimes it sits quietly on a collector's shelf, waiting for someone to uncover its story. I want to thank you for joining me today. And if you enjoy uncovering the hidden history behind original military artifacts like this one, please consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel and sharing it with other fellow military enthusiasts. And I would love to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever discovered an incredible story hiding behind what first appeared to be an ordinary military artifact? Let me know in the comments. And until next time, Semper Fidelis. Catch you later.